Welcome to Scaling Legends, the podcast where growth-minded construction leaders unlock the systems and strategies behind building generational companies. This is Deep Dive, the segment where we uncover how real founders are scaling from 5 million to 50 million and beyond without losing control of quality, culture, or cash flow. Today's episode is brought to you by smartbusinessautomator.com, the operations engine behind modern construction firms that want to scale smarter, not harder. If you're dealing with project delays, chaotic scheduling, dropped balls on follow-ups, or manual bottlenecks, Smart Business Automator helps you. Automate back-office workflows and change order follow-ups. Streamline subcontractor coordination and client communication. Track bids, leads, and financials in one clean dashboard. Free up your time to focus on building, hiring, and closing bigger deals. Because in construction, scale without systems is just stress. Now, let's deep dive.
All right, today on the Deep Dive, we're looking at a really interesting set of sources focused on construction companies, mostly down here in the Southeast. We're specifically digging into firms operating right here in Florida.
Yeah, that's right. We've got profiles, some research notes detailing the strategies, the approaches of some seriously prominent players in the region.
We're talking about companies like Lemartec, Suffolk Construction, Ajax Building Company, Wharton-Smith.
Exactly. And the thing is, they're not just, putting up buildings. They're building really distinct models for success, especially in what can be a pretty challenging environment.
Absolutely. And if you're out there maybe building your own company or, working your way up in this industry, you definitely know the pressures. Just imagine for a moment if you could just wipe out the biggest coordination headaches on your projects. What would that actually mean for your timelines, your stress levels maybe?
Or think about scheduling and budget. Like, what's the biggest bottleneck, the biggest frustration you run into trying to keep projects on the rails, budget-wise and time-wise?
Yeah. Or maybe, what would success look like for you if you knew you could build structures that could truly stand up to anything the Florida environment decides to throw at them? Hurricanes, humidity, all of it.
Let's just explore that idea for a second.
Yeah.
What if those obstacles you're facing, maybe they aren't really obstacles, maybe they're opportunities just waiting for you to figure them out?
That's really what we want to do in this deep dive. We want to pull out those key nuggets of knowledge from these company stories. What are they doing differently?
Right.
What actually takes a construction company from just good to genuinely great, especially how they tackle challenges and embrace change. Let's try and unpack this.
Okay, sounds good. Let's kick off with Lemartec. They're a MasTec company, which is, pretty significant.
Okay.
What's really insightful here is understanding their background. MasTec was already huge, right? But mostly in horizontal infrastructure.
Horizontal.
Yeah.
So like pipelines, transmission lines, that kind of heavy civil work.
Exactly. Lemartec was their strategic move, their way into vertical construction, building buildings.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So they basically decided, let's build the buildings that connect to or sit next to all the infrastructure we already built. That's quite a shift.
It's more than just a shift, really. It's a strategic integration. The source we looked at calls it their integration advantage. See, most companies, they do one or the other, right? Horizontal or vertical.
Right.
Being part of MasTec lets Lemartec offer this unique full-service capability.
Okay, so how does that integration actually give them an edge or, make things better for their clients?
Well, it hits those coordination headaches you mentioned right on the head. Think about building, say, a power plant.
Okay.
You need the actual plant structure, the vertical part, and you need the transmission lines connecting it out to the grid, the horizontal part. Or an airport terminal, you need the building, but also all the complex runway lighting systems. Lemartec, because they can leverage the whole MasTec network, they can handle both sides of that equation.
So they get rid of those awful handoff problems, the delays, the finger pointing, the scheduling nightmares that pop up when you've got two different specialist companies trying to mesh perfectly.
Exactly. They become the single point of responsibility for all those interconnected pieces. The source also pointed out they were recognized as top minority construction firm of the year for the Southeast.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's not just like an award for the shelf. It seems to reflect a deliberate strategy. It impacts how they hire, who they subcontract with, how they engage with the communities they work in, adds another layer to their whole approach.
And there was that LED example too, right? Port Miami's Cruise Terminal F.
Yeah.
That sounded impressive. Building a huge terminal, like 500,000 square feet, at a super busy port.
Yeah.
That's complex.
It is complex, and they achieved LED Silver certification on it, which is key. It really shows that even on these massive high-pressure commercial jobs, environmental responsibility doesn't have to be an afterthought. It was baked into the process, shows sustainability and, commercial success can actually go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And of course, being part of MasTec gives them that huge international network reach across the Americas.
Okay, that makes sense. Integration, creating opportunity. Now, let's pivot a bit. Suffolk Construction's Florida division. The sources on them, well, they basically scream technology.
Oh, absolutely. Suffolk really represents this powerful shift, Construction moving from maybe a primarily traditional craft-based thing towards a really tech-driven profession. They've invested heavily.
And it sounds like they're not just using the tech that's out there. They're actually, developing it. The source mentioned innovation labs working on VR, AI, robotics, specifically for construction.
That's exactly what makes them stand out. And it's not just theory or, pie-in-the-sky stuff. The source gives real examples. We're talking designing entire buildings in virtual reality before a shovel hits the ground.
Wow.
Using AI to optimize construction schedules based on, learning from past projects. Using drones for quick, accurate quality inspections right on site. This is how they operate now.
Okay, this sounds like it ties into what the source called predictive excellence, which, if you've ever been blindsided by surprises on a job that just wreck your schedule or budget, well, this sounds like the antidote.
It really is. Their tech aims to eliminate those unknowns. AI spotting potential delays way in advance by crunching data. Virtual models showing design clashes before you order materials. Real-time tracking keeping everyone in the loop.
So they can basically find and fix problems in the virtual world before they become these expensive, time-consuming crises in the real world.
Precisely. And that predictive power, it fundamentally changes the risk on a project. The source suggests it lets them, guarantee outcomes with a much higher degree of confidence.
That's huge.
Yeah. And they also talk about collaborative innovation, sharing their tech progress, partnering with others in the industry, software companies, equipment makers. It suggests they believe, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Okay, from integration and tech, let's shift again. Ajax Building Company. The sources frame them as this Southeast Regional powerhouse. Over 50 years, just perfecting construction right here.
Ajax's path, it seems, is really rooted in deep, deep local knowledge. They've spent decades mastering the very specific challenges of building in this environment. Hurricane zones, the intense humidity, salt air.
Right.
And also managing construction in places like Florida that are just growing incredibly fast. Their consistent high rankings among regional builders really points to that mastery.
Hurricane-proof excellence. That sounds pretty intense. What does that actually mean on the ground? What makes them different?
Well, it's apparently more than just following the standard building codes. It's about specialized techniques they've developed over years. For dealing with Category 5 winds, for instance, choosing materials specifically tested to hold up against constant humidity and salt corrosion, and adapting their scheduling processes to account for frequent weather delays or interruptions. The source mentions specific methods they use for wind-resistant design and also for, rapid construction phases to get things enclosed faster during storm season.
So basically, while some might see the regional climate and weather as just a major hassle, Ajax has turned mastering it into their core strength, a competitive advantage.
Exactly that. They didn't just learn to build in Florida, they built their whole expertise around Florida's unique demands. And their growth market mastery, it isn't just about building stuff quickly, it's understanding how to support the state's, frankly, explosive population growth.
Right.
They've built tons of essential facilities, schools, hospitals, commercial centers, but they do it understanding the dynamics of communities that are still growing and changing rapidly.
Sounds like they build with that future growth really baked into the plan. The source also mentioned their sustainable development expertise, balancing growth with Florida's environment.
Which is absolutely critical here, right? Building responsibly in a state with Florida's natural beauty and, sensitivities requires a really careful balancing act.
Makes sense. Okay, last one, Wharton-Smith. The sources describe them as the Florida infrastructure specialists. Nearly 80 years in the game. They seem to focus on the stuff that's essential, but maybe not always flashy.
Absolutely. Wharton-Smith is all about the foundations, the infrastructure that makes everything else work. Water treatment plants, transportation systems, utility networks, the projects that are absolutely essential for a state to function and grow, even if they don't make the skyline headlines.
And doing that kind of work in Florida sounds uniquely challenging too. You mentioned the geography, sandy soils, high water table, storm surge risk.
Yeah, it demands a very specific kind of technical specialization, as the source put it. They need deep expertise in things like advanced foundation systems that work in tricky soil and with high water tables. Innovative drainage solutions are huge, dealing with seasonal floods and major storm events.
And a lot of this infrastructure, it involves public money, public needs, right? So does that mean they also have to be experts in navigating those complex public-private partnerships?
The source definitely confirms that. They have significant experience there, juggling public benefit, navigating complex regulations, all while ensuring commercial viability. It means mastering project finance, tricky contracts, and managing a whole bunch of different stakeholders, from government agencies to private investors.
That's a whole different skill set, really, beyond just the physical construction. And the source mentioned their long-term vision. How does that play out in their projects?
Well, they're building things designed to last for decades, literally. So that means factoring in future population growth projections. Considering the long-term effects of climate change, sea level rise is a big one here.
Sure. And anticipating how technology might evolve, maybe in water treatment or grid management.
Yeah.
The source notes this often involves accepting higher initial costs to get superior long-term value and resilience. It's a different calculation.
Okay, so if we try to connect these threads, these different paths to greatness we've just looked at, Lemartec's strategic integration, Suffolk's tech-driven prediction, Ajax's deep regional specialization and resilience, and Wharton-Smith's focus on foundational infrastructure with that long-term view.
Yeah.
What's the big takeaway here about succeeding in construction?
Well, I think it clearly shows there's no single magic bullet, right?
Right.
Each of these companies, they identified specific challenges or maybe opportunities that were inherent in their market or their environment. And then they built their core strategy around mastering that specific thing.
Right.
They didn't run away from complexity, they leaned into it. They embraced it and turned it into what makes them unique, their value proposition. And they clearly embraced change too, whether that was a totally new business model like Lemartec, or technological disruption like Suffolk, or adapting to evolving environmental pressures like Ajax and Wharton-Smith. That seems key to becoming leaders in their specific areas.
Exactly. So for you listening, maybe building your own business or trying to advance your career, these examples really highlight something important. It's about truly understanding the specific challenges you face in your market, your niche, and then finding strategic, focused ways to tackle them. That seems to be the path from just being good to being great.
So think about it. What stands out to you from these different approaches? Are you wrestling with coordination issues where maybe integration could be an answer? Could technology give you a predictive edge you don't have now? Does your region have unique environmental challenges or market dynamics that if you really mastered them could set you apart? Or maybe there are foundational long-term needs in your area that you could build a strategy around, delivering that lasting value.
Yeah, building a truly resilient, successful company so often boils down to how you strategically choose to respond to the obstacles right there in your path.
So given these different paths to success we've talked about today, what's maybe one area in your own business journey or your career path where embracing a challenge, leaning into a change could potentially lead to a real breakthrough? Something to think about.